Lucky day. What more can my people do? Tell the F-15s to fire at the plane?
Harrison Ford is the president of the United States whose plane is hijacked by terrorists in Air Force One. One of 5 new movies we'll be reviewing this week on Siskel and Ebert. I'm Gene Siskel of the Chicago Tribune.
And I'm Roger Ebert of the Chicago Sun-Times. One of the busiest characters in action movies these days is the President of the United States, who on Independence Day battled with aliens in absolute power, was a killer, in Murder at 1600 survived a violent coup, and in Contact dealt with messages from outer space. Now in Air Force One, he's aboard the safest airplane in the world when it's taken over by armed terrorists. The hijacker seized control of the plane on its way home from Moscow, and in this scene, the First Lady, played by Wendy Crewson, confronts the leader of the terrorists, played by Gary Oldman, who believes the president escaped the airplane in a secret emergency pod.
He will not negotiate.
Really? His wife? His daughter?
But the president, played by Harrison Ford, has fooled them and is still on board. He hides in the bowels of the ship, desperately trying to contact the White House and running into an operator who can't believe he's really the president.
Who did you say is calling?
This is the president.
Yeah, right, and I'm the First Lady.
The terrorists in this movie make the same old mistake, dividing up so their enemy can pick them off one at a time. Meanwhile, in Washington, the vice president, played by Glenn Close, deals with the terrorist demands.
Any educated guesses as to where they might be going?
Iraq, Libya, Algeria.
Those are guesses. I don't know if they're educated.
So we better notify our allies. We'll need secure airspace. Can we keep that under wraps?
The movie assembles a lot of durable old action cliches, of which the oldest is this variation on your basic dilemma where the hero has to decide which wires to cross.
Cut the green wire.
Okay, green. Cut.
And then cross that
With the what? Hello? Cross it with the what? Say again? Cross the green wire with the...
You're not going to see much in Air Force One that you haven't seen before in a lot of other movies, including Passenger 57 and Turbulence. And the basic situation, one heroic guy against a gang of terrorists, is recycled directly from Die Hard and many, many other stories. There's some debate about who should be in charge of responding to the hostage crisis in the movie, but the film's only interest in that is to provide some dramatic, solemn talk in between action sequences. The cast is a good one, and Harrison Ford generates sympathy just with his very presence, but this is not a very fresh or a very original action picture.
I enjoyed it a little more than you, Roger, in this way. I like the setup of the picture. I like being taken into literally the corridors of power inside this plane. I think we're all interested in that. If there was a book of photos of it, a tour of it on TV, everyone would watch it. And the other part that you did say you liked, or at least a little bit, was back in Washington, the debate between the Secretary of Defense. Well, I kind of enjoyed that stuff. The problem I had is, why, with Harrison Ford, who is such a smart actor, we'd rather watch him in a battle of wits against terrorists than in the physical battle. And that's the part of the picture.
That's a good point.
That's the part of the picture that bothered me. In other words, is this where they had to end up? When he's dangling out there in space, I'm not with this film at all, and I feel disappointed.
You really have to ask yourself if the president would be more physically able to take on the terrorists than his Secret Service guards. That would be a good question.
Well, I suppose they deal with that in the way the story goes.
In a way they try to.
I'm just saying
but another thing, you're talking about the inside details of Air Force One.
Yes.
Much better done and In the Line of Fire, directed by the same man.
I know. I thought this was better in terms of the actual plane itself.
Yeah, you did?
Yeah.
Okay.
So a marginal recommendation for me with the big qualifier that the third act doesn't work. Okay, next movie. And our next film is called Good Burger, and it's based on a popular skit from the Nickelodeon's Kids cable TV channel. And so I presume a lot of children and their parents are going to be inclined to see this very heavily advertised picture, and it's just awful. Good Burger follows the misadventures of two boys who work in a fast food burger shop, one dumber than the other, as they try to hang on to their jobs and compete against the new big burger store across the street. Here, the vicious manager of the new store meets the boys and issues a warning.
You better watch your butt, man.
Okay. Look, you got a purpose for being here?
Yeah, I do. I just thought you Good Burger losers should be aware that tonight is the grand opening of Mondo Burger.
The boys are Roly-Poly Dexter, played by Kenan Thompson, and Sweet Simple Ed, played by Kel Mitchell. To spy on the competition, the boys dress in drag.
Water! Water!
Okay.
Water!
I'll be right back.
Water! Water! All right, let's go. Hey, what about your water?
There isn't too much to say about Good Burger other than it isn't very funny. I don't see why one of the kids couldn't be smart. That would set up a whole nother set of jokes, I think. As written, however, I strongly recommend skipping Good Burger.
Well, I don't recommend the movie either, Gene, but I think these are two pretty bright kids. I don't know why you think they're dumb. They figure out the entire situation. They save Good Burger. They outsmart the competition. They get everything they want. Who could be smarter than that?
Do you think that Ed is a smart character, or do you think Ed...
Oh, he's very smart in the way that he goofs on people with his wordplay.
In other words, you believe that Ed is totally an act. He is not saying what he really thinks when he speaks.
I believe that to a degree, yes. He is absolutely performing as Ed, yes.
That we completely disagree.
And even so, he's not dumb. Even if he isn't an act, he's not that dumb.
I think that he's
effective. He's effective in dealing effectively
Roger,
with everyone
these are the
around him.
heroes of the picture. Of course they're going to make things turn out happy. You think the burger store is going to close
Well, another
up?
problem I have with your review is that I think basically this movie is made for 8-year-old kids who watch Nickelodeon. I think they love these kids.
I had no idea. I
and
thought
they
it was
would probably like the movie,
I thought
too.
it was made for their college professor fathers and mothers.
But no, you reviewed it as if it was.
And so you give me a positive review?
Not for myself, but I'm trying to give a fair assessment of the function of the movie and its intended audience.
I thought you were a guy who always says you review what you think and not try and predict what the audience is going to think.
Well, if I've been useful to our viewers, I'm very grateful. When we come back, Peter Gallagher and Laura Flynn Boyle starring Cafe Society, a look at low life in Sin City.
Pretty girls like a melody. How so? They get stuck in your head. And once they're there, you can't get rid of them.
Cafe Society opens in a New York nightclub in the early 1950s as a rich young playboy spots a glamour girl and is instantly fascinated, and his fascination leads to one of the more lurid scandals of the decade in this racy melodrama based on a true story. The playboy, well played by Frank Whaley, is Mickey Jelke, the dissolute alcoholic heir to an oleomargarine fortune. The girl is Patricia Ward, or at least that's who she says she is, and she's played by Laura Flynn Boyle as a poor girl trying to pass as a rich one.
Where do you summer?
In nightclubs.
Why do you do it if it's so disastrous?
In the hopes that I'll meet someone who I've never met. Like you.
Or perhaps someone you won't figure out in 5 seconds flat.
That's never happened.
It's about to.
Tell me more.
The third major player in the case is Peter Gallagher, playing an undercover cop who has become friends of Jelke, Ward, and their circle. His assignment is to gather evidence of depravity among the rich and famous to generate headlines at election time.
What's the deal, Mickey? You running a whorehouse? I'm Mickey Jelke. What do I need money for? No, I'm just a benevolent patron to a bunch of slightly deviant individuals. Nothing wrong with that, is there?
One of the best performances in the movie is by John Spencer, who plays a cynical, degenerate Broadway press agent who is also a pimp and specializes in providing expensive girls to guys who can afford them.
Well, Persky don't pimp for those girls. He just gives me their phone numbers.
And you tell him you're going to put them in pictures.
They are already in pictures, Jack. I put them in business.
Cafe Society tells its story in a visual style that owes a lot to the look of the notorious Confidential magazine, which was so widely read in the 50s, and also to the in-your-face photography of legends like the tabloid cameraman named Ouija. The movie was written and directed by Raymond D. Felita, who does a good job of skewering the hypocrisy of everyone involved. Another thing I liked was the movie's atmosphere, in which everyone is convinced they are so unbelievably wicked, when in fact they were only 10 or 15 years ahead of their time.
I think it's a beautiful looking picture, and I want to just stress the look. When you see this film, and you can see it from these clips, somebody worked very, very hard to recreate this. This is not just simple, you know, we'll get a little bit of Art Deco, Art Moderne stuff in the background, and get some Store Club napkins or El Morocco, lights or something. They really worked hard in texturing the actual film itself, the actual photography of this stuff. It is beautifully done. There are lots of montages all the way through of the nightlife in the 50s, and then every single performance works. And Lara Flynn Boyle, I guess because of Twin Peaks, maybe she wasn't taken that seriously as an actress. I think she's a really fine actress, and she does a beautiful job.
And I like Frank Whaley, too, who is so good as this kid who is young and callow and spoiled and
He's
evil.
Very good.
And selfish and drunk all the time.
And Peter Gallagher, I remember saying sometimes he's too good looking for the roles he plays. Well, this time they've matched him perfectly. A great looking cop.
I like what you said about the montages, too, because they look just right out of those 50s movies that this is kind of referring to.
It's a wonderful piece of filmmaking and wonderful writing, too. Coming up next, a provocative film that asks the question, just how cruel can a man be to a woman? In the Company of Men is next.
Anyhow, we take a girl that type, just some corn fit that you'd practically miss her pants if you sharpen a pencil for her. And we both hit her. Small talk, a dinner date, flowers.
A ruthless young businessman tries to talk his colleague into helping him mentally torture a young woman, a stranger chosen at random, to show the superiority of the male species in the stunning new film In the Company of Men, certain to be one of the most talked about movies of the year, as well as one of the most audacious and best, in my opinion. The gambit is that they'll both profess their love for her, catch her in a lie, and then leave her high and dry. Here, the instigating jerk, named Chad, played magnificently by Aaron Eckhart, meets the victim, a pretty co-worker played by Stacey Edwards. He doesn't realize she has a disability.
Listen, just throw a cover sheet on it. Grab one of those company folders and shove it in the... Excuse me. What the hell? Did I roll in something?
That's right. She's deaf, and Chad decides cruelly that she'll be the victim of his prank, and he talks his associate Howard, Matt Malloy, into going along.
I thought we were in this together.
No, we are.
Okay, then. I mean, it's not fun unless we're both in on it.
Okay, I'll go down there next week or something. I don't know.
And here Chad reveals to Howard the source for some of his anger toward women.
Women. Nice ones, the most frigid of the race. It doesn't matter in the end. Inside, they're all the same. Meat and gristle and hatred.
And here's Chad on a date with Christine some weeks into their relationship after she has already developed strong feelings for him.
My job ends here in a few weeks, and I just want you to know that whatever you do is all right with me. I mean, I don't care about dates you go on, other guys.
And that's pretty sick, you must be thinking, playing a vicious trick on a deaf woman, on any woman. But In the Company of Men is deadly serious and high-minded about its concept. This is not some cheap thrills, sleeping with the enemy Hollywood movie. No, this film managed to actually make you feel the pain of another human being in a very fresh way. And In the Company of Men, we see the emotional blood really flow, and it stops you short. How dare anyone be so cruel to any other human being at any time? Is this a feminist movie? Is it a hate men movie? Maybe. But it's so much more than that. Writer-director Neil LaBute has created a film that cries out against inhumanity regardless of the sex of the perpetrator or victim. It's an audacious, brave picture, beautifully conceived and performed.
Well, I think it's a great picture, too. And the lead guy in this movie is probably the most evil person I've ever seen in a movie. And now I'm going to tell you something else.
I felt the same way.
Many, many, many people watching this movie will be able to say they have done things almost as bad as what he does. That kind of behavior, lying to somebody in an emotional relationship and leading them down the garden path and then dismissing them, is very, very common. And all this movie really does is dramatize it in a very compact way.
When you say dramatizes, let me just say that that word isn't worthy of what he's done here, because it's so credible. That's what's stunning to me. I think the behavior is more outrageous than you think. That's immaterial. But what I'm convinced of is, I said, is he going to do this? He's going to do this?
You don't think that guys don't talk like this about girls? Of course they do.
No, I think what we're talking about...
They talk just this cynically. Do they lie to girls?
Not the ones that I know.
They don't?
Not
You've
the ones
never
that I
seen
know.
this kind of behavior?
I have never seen it.
You never have? Well,
Nope.
you've lived a very fortunate life.
Thank you.
Okay, coming up next, John Turturro was a man escaping from his regimented lifestyle in Box of Moonlight.
The Century Plaza, offering the finest in luxury, service, and Southern California style, adjacent to Beverly Hills on LA's fashionable West Side. The Century Plaza Hotel and Tower, a Westin hotel.
Our next movie tells the story of an electrical engineer who does everything by the book and by the clock. He's been right on time all of his life, and so when he starts seeing things go backwards, he gets a little alarmed. Maybe this is a sign to slow down and smell the coffee. The movie's name is Box of Moonlight, and it stars John Turturro in a delicate, subtle performance as a construction foreman who has lingered behind after an out-of-town job fell through and finds himself giving a lift to a mysterious stranger.
You played Davy Crockett?
Yeah. No, I mean, I played some guy standing around with a rifle, but one night I tried on Davy's costume, and it fit me so perfect, I just took it.
That's Sam Rockwell. There was a character called the Kid. He's off the grid all right, but Turturro was fascinated by the sheer, utter freedom of his lifestyle and hangs around his home in the woods.
What the hell happened here?
What? What's the matter? What do you mean?
Where's the rest of your house?
Oh, I only bought half. I got a really good deal.
They hook up with a couple of sisters, and Turturro finds himself attracted to the Shire one, played by Catherine Keener.
I was in phone sales.
Oh, really? Office supplies, clothing catalogs?
Sex.
Excuse me?
Phone sex?
Tom DiCillo, who wrote and directed the film, began as a cinematographer for Jim Jarmusch before directing Johnny Suede, which starred Brad Pitt, and then Living in Oblivion, which was a satirical look at low-budget filmmaking. I think this is his best film. It's not overwhelming, but that's okay, because I think what it wants to be is underwhelming in a sweet, whimsical way.
Well, there's no question. This is like the enchanted cottage between two guys. I mean, and the story just rings true because in the way that the script has been written, we discover as Turturro discovers. First of all, you can't believe the set that we're taken to, this guy's house. I mean, it is dazzling, as we could see there, and strange and weird. And so, you know, you're sort of agape throughout the whole picture, as is the Turturro character. And yes, this is his best film. It's very entertaining. I enjoyed it a lot. Coming up next, now out on video, a terrific love and friendship story about two 30-year-old women, and only one is engaged. Anne Hesh co-stars in Walking and Talking.
Siskel and Ebert's Video Pick of the Week is brought to you by Nestle Raisinets. At the movies or at home, Raisinets.
Last year at this time, Roger and I both enjoyed a little picture called Walking and Talking, not realizing that a year later, one of its co-stars would be the subject of major media scrutiny, actress Anne Hesh, who starred in Volcano earlier this year, but is more famous now, I suppose, as the love of Ellen DeGeneres' now openly gay life. In Walking and Talking, Hesh plays one of two 30-year-old best friends, the one who's getting engaged, which brings about a rivalrous aspect to her relationship with friend Catherine Keener, the co-star of Box of Moonlight, which we just reviewed.
You're engaged? Wow, that's unbelievable. That's great news.
This puts some pressure on Catherine Keener's character to have some kind of relationship, too, but she feels like she's just making do with a video store clerk played memorably by Kevin Corrigan.
Can I talk you into Freak Show 7? There's a late show.
Walking and Talking, my video pick of the week. Now let's recap the movies we reviewed on this show. A split vote on Air Force One with Harrison Ford. I liked it, but thought it was better setting up its premise than actualizing its silly, action-filled conclusion. Roger felt the film was lacking totally in originality, and he votes thumbs down. 2 thumbs down, way down, for the stupid kids comedy, Good Burger. 2 thumbs up for Cafe Society, with Raymond D. Fallita creating an original-looking motion picture. 2 thumbs up, way up, for the challenging drama In the Company of Men, a bold story of cruelty written and directed by Neil LaBute. It opens next Friday in New York and Los Angeles. And 2 more thumbs up for Box of Moonlight, a fanciful yarn about an uptight businessman learning to go with the flow. And I want to say, I guess, about In the Company of Men, some people say, oh, that's so painful, what he's doing there. I don't want to go near the picture. Go through the picture.
It's not
High drama.
Yeah, the fact is, no great movie can be painful because it's exhilarating to see this kind of script and this kind of performance devoted to really looking at the way we live.
And again, he takes an episode straight out of life, however frequent it may be, and charges it with just remarkable
and the fact
drama.
that it all takes place within the walls of this anonymous corporation, it's kind of like R-rated Dilbert in a way. It's really an amazing film. That's it for this week. Next week, we'll be back with reviews of more new movies, including 187, starring Samuel L. Jackson as a burnout high school teacher.
Everything I've ever wanted has been taken from me. No matter how many of you I get rid of, I can't get it back.
We'll also see the comic book hero known as Spawn make his big screen debut. That's next week, and until then, the balcony is closed.